Zapraszam Państwa wszystkich do...
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We're going to have an interesting debate. My name is Eva Dujanovic, and I'm a therapist at the Center for Children at the Empowering Children Foundation. We're going to talk about the impact of technology on children and young people. This is the second day of 4 days, because 2 days are dedicated to webinars. As professionals, we have been wondering about this topic. As parents, we're worried. This topic is really close to my heart because in our center, I meet children who are faced with difficult and often harming situations online. It's good that we are here together because technology is a collective challenge. What is ahead of us? How we can shape the future of technology in a responsible way and protect children against its consequences. You're going to talk about those things in the panel discussion, and then we'll have time for the audience to ask questions and share their experiences. In alphabetical order, we have Olivia Tempak. She's co-creator and she coordinates the project Web. The purpose is to educate young people how to use social media and how to be safe online. Olivia was active in the Polish Parliament in 2025. She deals with the impact of algorithms on the mental health and threats related to AI development. Olivia will have her baccalaureate this year. Sylwia Czubkowska. Good morning. Economic journalist w Gazeta Wyborcza, dziennik Gazeta Prawna, Przekrój. She has a podcast called Tech Story, which was an award-winning podcast, and she was nominated to Grand Press Torańska or Król awards, and she's author of 2 books on technology. Maciej Groń, legal advisor at dyżurnet.pl. For over 6 years, he worked at NASK and specializes in the law related to new technologies, and he's one of co-founders on the Forum for Management of Internet. You know, there's never too much of applause. They're really, strengthening for our panel members. Last panelist is co-founder and president of Opticon, and she has a podcast, Panoptykon 4.0.
okazji takie polecajki tych podcastów.
I recommend the podcasts. You can learn a lot from them. Let me start with a question that is addressed to all of you. According to you, how do technologies shape the childhood currently, and how do you perceive that in a perspective of 3 to 5 years? Anyone? I would like to start. I think technology has very diversified impact on childhood because on the one hand, it has huge potential for learning, building creativity and developing passions, and there are many risks on the other hand. Risk of addiction, risk of learning bad behavior that may be just influenced by internet. So the screen is not the same for everybody. 2 hours on Instagram or TikTok in short form contents will not equal 2 hours playing a strategic game, for instance, that will not only be entertainment, but it also is beneficial to development and is pleasant without being harmful. I think a solution would be to introduce technology in a safe way, would be to moderate time that people spend online. TikTok may actually have a harmful impact on the child's development and bring some learning difficulties. Then other forms of technology should also be used to keep up with technologies and so that a child can learn from these miracles of technology that we have. What about the future? Are you worried? It seems to me that technology has become such an integral part of our lives that there won't be much changes in terms of how much we use it. The only threat that is hanging over our heads, so to speak, is the development of AI. If we don't focus on how we should be aware of the threats, it can impact the development of children and their future. Well, so with your peers, do you talk about the impact of technology in your everyday life? Does it come in the way or does it help you? I'm a programmers, developers class, so we talk a lot about it, both in positive and negative aspects. Many people whom I know are aware of negative consequences. For instance, of using short form content. Many people give up using social media. These people are 18, 19 years old, and younger people, I think I could say from my experience, I worked on web projects. We had 30 lectures, and it's nearly 2,000 children that were willing to listen to us, and they wanted to be educated. They were fascinated that we spoke to them on their level, and we wanted to listen to them, and we could tell them how to deal with problems that they meet online. So yes, we do have conversations about technology. How old were you when you had a first account on social media? 11 years old. It's less than allowed, but that's the truth. Have you spoke to your parents back then? Did you talk to them? It was a Facebook account that I used to write with my friends, and my parents agreed to that, yes. I was 11 years old. I am asking because I have this journalist impulse. Yes, you took over the debate. I did not take over. I'm just so curious with curious people. I'm asking, you're 18 or 19 years old? 19. So 2006. It's like our aunts. What year were you born in? 2006. Well, you can't be an adult already, but you are. So there's this liminal date. One of such dates that was indicated was 2009 when Facebook introduced like. It changed the way positioning algorithms work in social media. Everybody did the same afterwards. I've been wondering, young adults, teenagers who were born after 2009, which is in the world where social media, these are not social media actually, they are social platforms. And the way they function using the content positioning algorithms not based on the time of publication, not on the basis of group of friends, that was cut off a lot by engagement, by the way we exteriorate our emotions, that we show them. Was it different? Have you got such an impression? Children born after 2009, I think not everyone is aware of that. Even to me, if we didn't make some research online, I wouldn't know that. So When we entered the world of social media, we had likes already. Algorithms were not so aggressive at that time. They didn't really work in such a addiction-generating way, but children are not aware of the times being different back then. Now the question is, will it matter if they become aware of it? I don't understand, well, it used to be this and now it is that. That's not what I mean, but do they need another thing from social media? Less aggressive, for instance. I want to understand why I'm seeing this. Do you understand why you see things? I do talk about that a lot. It's what we talked with the children about it in the lectures. Not everyone understands the algorithms, but some people did, with more details or less. But when we asked questions, some people in the audience were aware of that. But educating children how much addiction generating the algorithms are should be much more talked about. So I agree with you that we should teach this to children. Some people who are more interested in technologies maybe look for information more, they know it, they are aware of it. And then the question comes up. It does not mean that they would take action even if they are aware. Many people are aware that it's harmful, but they reach for the contents because it's too difficult for them to refuse. Children need support because children in particular, although they know it's bad, they cannot actually do anything about it. Maybe the same question, how do you feel about it? What is your perspective on the technologies changing the childhood, and how do you perceive it in 3-5 years? Maciek, maybe. Thank you. 3-5 years is a very interesting time frame. On the one hand, if we took a picture from 3-5 years ago, we would not see much changes, not much progress. But since social media came about, after 5 years, the change was enormous. Wherever we are right now, people take selfies to publish them online. It's just a matter of 5 years. Maybe that happened faster. I think the next 3 to 5 years will be a harvest of situation that at every question we have a PhD level answer to any question in 1 second. It may change in 3-5 years. I've worked at NASK for 6 years, but I've been dealing with the advanced technologies much longer. And nearly in every conference, I've said, and I believe that honestly, that we are in a breakthrough moment. And that was the case for a very long time. It's yet another breakthrough moment. So it seems that the change is going to be enormous. As a lawyer working at Dyżurnet, I deal with problems that are online, mostly not with the good, beneficial things. I do believe that thanks to social media, people are able to meet great people or learn foreign languages. But I think not the majority. I won't focus on that. Seriously speaking, I really look forward to having regulations. Yesterday, it was announced by the government that the Act of Law on the regulation of the electronic media was accepted by the Parliament. There's another chamber of Parliament and the President's signature that needs to be fulfilled part of the legislative process as such before we have any results. So we want the rules not only to exist in formal law, but in everyday life. 3 to 5 years is enough, should be enough. I don't imagine we would have a similar situation than now. What would you define as the most serious threat for young children, for adolescents? I want to be innovative by saying this. When we look at the contents online, very often the content in itself is not so bad, but the scale of it builds up and it brings us backwards in development. One funny clip is funny, but if you keep scrolling for 2 hours, it becomes dangerous. And then we're not able to detach ourselves from it to have a normal life. So I'm really looking forward to all of us causing a change through this conference, through other activities, through regulation, that the priorities will be reversed. Development of technologies is so important. We wanted internet to grow at the beginning, but the human being is a priority. So in this conference, in more other conferences, we say that we need to take care of children. But actually, what we want to be done as a level of protection for children should be for everybody. I deserve the same level of protection. Why do I have to click 100 times through consents and other things not to be profiled in a way that I don't want to be? So we really want the content that children receive to be selected when they are under 18 years old. But majority of teenagers and children above 10 years old have nothing interesting there. 15 years old kids, what do they want to see? Cartoons all the time? That's irritated. So it should be improved as well. If you introduce too radical solutions, they stop working. So my wish is, to have it better. It would be best to have 5 points, meet them, 5 requirements, have a good rules, regulations are stated. There's control that comes up, everything works fine. I guess in some cases, that's what we have to do to mobilize the society to check, verify, and adapt every time. Because what is good for 10-year-old person from Warsaw won't be good for a 10-year-old child from Warsaw, but raised in a different family. So I would like to see the 3 to 5 years dedicated to improving the safety for children and adults. I dealt with regulations. I know that regulations can do something to a certain point, and what they can achieve, they do, but there are limits. In terms of games, gaming is with a certain threshold of protection. If we can move forward, great, but we need to actually go deeper. So thank you. You've said 2 important things. One is, it's interesting that you extend the protection that we are attribute to children, you extend it on adults. In such sorts of events, we would rather be focused on children, but your perspective is so correct. Okay, just one more remark. You reminded me of one important thing. We talk about safety of children at schools. Majority of you here are teachers. So for the children to be safe at schools, to make them safe, we should also take care of more things. Ministers said yesterday, we have wonderful teachers. The teachers need to be safe as well too, Creation of, maybe help me make it more precise. Tell me, are there regulations that secure and protect not only children, but you as teachers too? If you experience hate. I'm sure such situations happen. We've met here several times, and I'm certain. Do you know what you should do if you see memes with your image on WhatsApp or Facebook? No hands raised.
Na rękę, tak?
One hand in the air. Okay, maybe two. Just, be courageous. Hands up. Magic, would you like to ask how it works? Well, last week I was being wise how teachers should be protected. I showed entire procedures, and one lady showed up, she raised her hand, and yes, you are saying wise words. It's probably all true, but last week I fell victim to hate online. I don't feel victim to this, and I just wanted to show the kid that it is actually punishable. But unfortunately, the case did not go through in the court because the memes were not confirmed as being true by a notary public, by a notary. I could not believe my ears that, it seems that we are aliens, that, we are online and everything seems obvious, but that's a good thing, yeah? I just did not even think, it not even crossed my mind that we would ask a notary to confirm that the memes were identical with those that were published there. So thank you very much for this wider perspective, and also considering adults in what we are talking about. And so you said that in 3 to 5 years' time we'll be adults. Well, I do hope that that's going to be the case. It's going to be the 22nd edition of the conference that will meet up, and we will be able to say that yes, we are mature, we are adults when it comes to technologies, and when it comes to protecting children and youth. We will still talk about how to become adults, how to become mature. But Kasia, your answer to the very first question, how it's shaping, how it will be shaping. Well, I'm in the role of the person responsible for public policy and regulations, so I can say about our e-forum where we talk about what can be done and how it can be done. I'm more of a listener over here. Yesterday we saw those 15 plus reasons why the Empowering Children Foundation, but also NASC and others, do believe that the level at the moment is just too low, especially that the real levels that were presented by Łukasz, and these are studies that come not only from those years, and that we say that at the age of 7 that it's live halfway to what we want, but I believe that this is less of a threat to a 7-year-old than a 10-year-old, because at the age of 10 or 11 there are other mechanisms that will captivate your brain. And of course there are certain aspects that you know better than I do, but I really confirm that I agree with all of them. So we have addictions, for example, and it's not the issue that those kids are not digitally educated at home or at school, because I will repeat what Łukasz said, that there is no such a possibility that the brain of the child will be able to defend itself against certain mechanisms that were designed in a way to captivate the brain. So also Dr. Alexandra, who speaks to us adults, and we know that it starts with us, but if we know how difficult it is to resist, then when we talk about children, we practically leave them with no protection, and also they experience all of these issues. So this is the image pressure and stress and FOMO, alienation, depression, etc., etc. So because of all of this, they are going to look for support. But where are they going to look for support if we do not show up as parents, as teachers, and as the state that regulates this sphere? Well, they will do what also was shown by Marek. This is going to be the chat box and chatbot. Yes, there will be even more suicide attempts and suicides because as a result of a conversation for a week or maybe a little bit longer with ChatGPT, and the person did not manage to really solve the issue because there was no connection to get psychological help, and the platforms claim that they do it, and we have got more and more information how transparent those platforms are, but YouTube, Meta has got such mechanism, or at least they claim that if there is any eating disorders or disturbances or suicidal thoughts, they are captured at some point. So the chatbot that feeds information and content into the head, that at some point there should be a switch. Yes, okay, contact this hotline or this specialist, but with AI we don't have it. So after reading Haidt's book, I presume we know it, The Anxious Generation, I'm a fan of this book in the part describing what is happening with the childhood now these days. You can, of course, debate certain things, but looking at what has happened with the childhood of American children and what will happen is already happening with the childhood of our children, it is this withdrawal of the adults. And Haidt emphasizes this. This is not the fault of a single household or a single parent. This is the culture of fear, of wrongly understood safety, where statistically a parent in Warsaw or in any big city in Poland feels safer when a child is, next door in the room with a laptop or with the phone, or maybe in daycare, or it is safer than a child who's in the street or, in the yard playing with others. So Haidt shows that this is the false image of the world. Our streets are much safer than the internet, especially the social media, where adults are absent altogether, where you've got the pressure of looking perfect, cyberbullying, cyber violence, and everything that you have been talking about these 2 days. So this is the responsibility of the adults and the regulators. So Haidt says we don't give the kids enough experience of being and also being with them in the real world. We leave them too much to the online world. And if we don't change this trend, and this is being overly protective in the real world and abandoning the kids online, if we don't reverse that trend, we are going to have the disaster that Maciej described. Thank you very much. You reversed the question. It's not about how technologies shape the childhood. It's more like our adults. What do we know about those technologies? What do we enable? How do we moderate this relationship between the children and the technology? You talked about transparency reports, and we already have heard that the AI present on Meta and Messenger that children get in touch with and build relationships, it can also introduce some romantic parts. I don't know what it's going to look like in the future, but hopefully in the future it is going to be taken care of. But also the parents who do not use it, then they may not know that it's present there. So, Sylvia, how do you see that? Well, I ask Olivia first, because confronting the things that the adult says with what is happening in the world of now adult person, but just a moment ago nearly adult, shows us a sensible perspective that is more true to reality. And it will be wonderful if we do it, if we have the reports, how many hours per day, which platform, what the child does, when does the interaction start, at what age, etc. But still, the most interesting conclusions come when we start talking with the children about what happens in the online world. So I have asked about such conclusions. So what is being noticed is a change, noticeable change of very young adults entering, adulthood. So they grew up in the world of social media, different platforms, etc., entered that world pretty quickly. And now they are pretty rational about self-limitations. They are learning how to self-limitate certain things. Of course, the reports are important, the world of the adults, all the information that reaches you, the policy that exists or does not exist when it comes to for example, schools, what to do with the smartphones, how to use the technology. But correct me if I am wrong. You probably see that amongst your friends, that now people really talk about it, they limit that, they are not so present there anymore. So what is it for? Is it for everyone, or, locked up just for a small group of friends? So the majority of my friends have either a private account, and for the public one, they only publish events they really want to share. I can tell that 85% have some limitation, either systemic, time limit for TikTok, for example, and they really use it. Some are desperate to use anything to get out of this loop of constant scrolling. For example, the dark mode, so that it is less stimulating. That's the mode they use on their phone. And sometimes it is difficult to isolate from them. I personally do have an issue with social media. I simply don't have them on my phone. I have uninstalled them, also because my childhood I spent there, whether I like it or not. And I do believe that with many people, the issue is that maybe the parents don't have the awareness. Maybe we could have prevented it. And maybe if it could have been prevented at a young age, we wouldn't have the issues that we have now, even though we now have the awareness and we work on it. But we need to really do our utmost that young people have a better start in social media, but they know how they can use it, that they learn it right from the start, something we didn't have. And for me, this is an interesting change, because really when we talked about 3, 5, 7 years ago about the situation of children and young people, mostly on social media. Now we talk also about the AI. We didn't really talk about self-limitation, self-understanding amongst the children that we are supposed to take care of. So we talk about this awareness, but my intuition, as a journalist, because I do have quite a lot of such conversations, that it's no longer just in certain bubbles. It becomes a larger trend, a wider trend, and maybe we should draw conclusions, not to allow the younger generation to follow the same route. And so if we see that the social platforms are so broken, they are so broken, and maybe that's good because they don't evoke, such emotions as they used to, that it really was cool. It made sense to be there. However, these days, it is cool and it's good to be there with new services based on AI. So let us not make that mistakes. Let I draw conclusions from those 15, 20 years. And instead of talking about it in 3 to 5 years' time, what has happened to the kids or with the kids in AI, let's start now. Because that will be another field of exploitation of young people. That's not going to be easy, but I totally agree with you, Maciej, that we should stop introducing this division, internet for the kids and for adults, because once they turn 18, everything is okay, yeah? Every addictive algorithm is okay, because that's an adult person. Every chatbot that also influences emotion, it's cool, because that's an adult person. This is really a division that is making the platforms and big tech only talking, okay, let's talk about children. They will come representatives of those companies. They have a lot of self-regulations. Regulations are fine, but of course we have to work on them. And it's shifting the responsibility for overall safety. But it's time that we really start amending this and improving all of this, because that's the real danger. This is like child washing. I don't know if that's a good word, because it's not just about the teachers, it's about all of us functioning in this world. Because the kids mature very quickly and they will stop being under this protection very quickly as well. And I really don't believe that 20 or 25-year-old will require different protection, or not even protection, but care than, with 2025, but that's similar to 17 and 18. And whether we talk about 5 or 3 years' time, we need to talk about what was happening 3 years ago and what we didn't do well 3 years ago, and whether we can act differently now. From the point of view of therapeutic practice, I can mention that when it comes to manipulation, when you talk about a teenager or young adult, well, the special protection of children does not mean that 18 or 25-year-olds should not be protected. But what I'm talking about is when someone was 13, 12, 11, 18 at the time, there's going to be no resilience, because that's the way they have been brought up. They didn't have the experience of functioning in a different online world, different internet. But then people who are 11, 12, 13, sometimes they don't do it because they still don't know how to do it. But when they are 18, they have better awareness and they look of ways for self-limitation. So the difference of 5 years, that is a lot. When an 18-year-old speaks and what a 13-year-old can, which you know really well, coming across such persons at work or in your classroom. Coming to solutions, because we have got a general idea. We have been talking about since yesterday, we'll talk about it today. We talk about the AI, the flood of synthetic content as well. But Tomek Wilski also asked yesterday, who is going to bring up our children? Who is going to accompany them? That this is a real threat. We are going to lose our children to AI. This is where they are going to turn to, for someone who will accompany them, who will have time for them. So based on what you've heard so far, Kasia, the first question to you, because we do have this vision that the technologies will continue to develop. They will develop even faster. And there is this fantasy that this will get out of control because, of course, now we have those narratives that the AI will rule the world, it will get out of control. There are also even examples now that the AI does such things. But we also talk about the need for regulation. You have mentioned it today. More than ever before, we notice those trends. So do you see a real chance that the technology development would be supervised in such a way that it would allow the protection of the children?
It's a good question for you. Yes, well, seriously speaking, we have a strong opponent, not only Chinese, but the big tech as well. They're hanging strong. It would be naive to think that the situation now will not impact on what Brussels does. It will. Polish politicians promise regulating the platforms, protecting children, and so on. I am skeptical to hear that. Every act of law needs to be signed by the president and it needs to pass through a parliament, right? The way it is. But we do have foundations. We fought for it. Panopticon has serious amount of acts of law on digital services. Poland will be implementing the last bits of it. The Council of Ministers adopted it. Now we have only President's signature to wait for. So that's good news, the way I see it. I've been working with regulations for 15 years, and very simple bans are very easy to avoid. Don't come smartphone to your school. That's too simplistic. It often generates the opposite results than intended. So a regulation that has good legal grounds, such as the Act on the Data Protection, is hanging strong. 13 plus as an age limit is the result of DPR. So in transactions, people need for people to be able to actually have transactions online, they're required to have a certain level of maturity. So the e-regulations that exist right now, we have 28th article on the protection of minors. You spoke about it. It's about designing technology in a way that children are not exposed to the long list of risks that Łukasz Wójtasik spoke about yesterday. Does it work? It doesn't work yet. But we have a foot in the doorstep. We say, don't design your tools to generate the dopamine release. Don't design the contents to be addictive. And there is a long list of guidelines by the European Commission. In the recommendation part, they're very good. Now, we need to have that implemented in practice. Every year, however, the platforms publish reports in every November. And they say what kind of threats they see and what they did to counteract it. And a large part of it is always about children. I read the Meta, YouTube, and TikTok reports. YouTube had the best. I think zero data. Everything was based on declarations. But the slogans they used, the way of reassuring language they used was just creating a beautiful image. They don't write things they do. They don't show data, but they enter it in the dialogue. And they said, yes, we need to design the services so that a teenager has to turn on the localization. It's not switched on by default, or pop-up notifications, or an algorithm to provide a profile of the teenager. And it's different from a situation that I enter a social network and I get information filtered from the data based on my peers, and I more or less understand things. I can see something because my friend liked it, or this post is from my friend. That's not the way Facebook works. 10 last years have been pushing the contents that was not required. So both children and adults are bombarded by contents that are intended to bring us and pull us into compulsive scrolling, sensational, intense contents. If I'm 13 and I put sex, I will not have information for Wikipedia, but a hardcore contents. We can see things changing on the declarative level and on the expectations of regulators, and regulations have at their for them ability to put harsh fines. I cannot see things changing in practice, but on a declarative level. I'm sure that it would be best to have them in practice. In Brussels, we say the same. We cannot have, dangerous regulations, and platforms love to regulate in a way that, yes, we will take care of the youngest populations and you are all adults. But in real life politics, we cannot allow this sort of opportunity to be left unnoticed and unused. We do not want to fight for the ban on smartphones at schools. People from education tell us it's not a bad idea. I'm not fighting for regulations for children. If we fight for something for children, it's easier than to say, give it to the rest now. It's better than to do nothing. So tactically speaking, it's very difficult. Is there a possibility to have children as a special risk group and win for them and then expand on others rather than to expect impossible? The platforms will be very much unwilling to give up on shooting the adults' dopamine levels up. So I'm being practical and I'm opting for the solutions in between. So a practical solution would be, who puts the ban? The Commission will not do that. The platforms will not. The countries can say that, okay, in France, in Australia, in Italy, in particular countries, we may have the bans or limits raised individually, because on the European level it's not done. I'm not in favor of that, because that Trump will be against. It will be more difficult of the negotiating position, but it's better than nothing. In his book, he shows that teenagers are craving for help. They say, take it away from us. We do not want to be stuck with smartphones. We see the pictures or videos from our parents' childhood, and they played outside. This is what we want. That's in the US. Let's fight for the age limits in Poland, to have a way of talking to the European Commission, to show them that we want our children to be treated in a different way. What is painful is, for instance, that a 15-year-old person have some tools. They may go to therapist or chat GDP or talk to pedagogue or peers or parents. But the 10-year-old kids, they're entirely helpless. I have children who don't have social media, but if I give them anything to watch, their level of anger, they have it often, but their level of anger shows us what we're dealing with is absolutely furious that we cut off the access to social media. So we see children who are 7, 10 years old with smartphones. It's enough for one kid to have smartphone, and everybody wants to touch it, scroll, and it's more powerful than children. We need to be politically effective in terms of efficiency. We have to fight for our children. So I am really voicing out opinion that it's a bad argument. So putting in a mainstream discussion about children only. When we understand those challenges, what you're saying, 3-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, 13-year-olds, they are not the same. But what you also notice when you talk to corporations, they will take care of children, but they won't do anything else. In our regulations, they have one provision on children and hundreds on others. We have enough legal grounds to fight for adults. We don't have political strength in terms of political power and narrative. If we want to fight, let's start with fighting for children. If we can afford to fight for children and adults at the same time, it would be perfect. But let's not allow the platforms to go behind the law or just obey to Trump and scare those corporations with fines. We know that millions of children are being abused online for the profit.
Mam taką jedną refleksję i jedno pytanie jeszcze do ciebie. Refleksja jest taka, że nie wiem,
My reflection is that I don't know the reality in the US, but I know that in Poland, kids scream for help, cry out for help in many different ways, and they don't always get that assistance. But we also hear that we need to now turn theory into practice. What do we need to do in practice to for it to work, so that it's not just theory? We will see changes in the smartphones. What else can we do politically? I believe that the debate that is being now run in our parliament where also big platforms are being debated as well. But we have to talk about the fact that it's the European level. In Poland, we don't regulate it, and that is true. We've got the Act on Regulated Children Online. We have the Act on what we call by 2050 no phones at school. We have got also the large European Act, Digital Services Act, that we talked about as well. And we are going to have the old new regulator, and that we will get the president of just, at any point, because now we have a meeting in the parliament as well, and that will happen soon. But we can go to the Polish parliament, talk about the phones at school. So it's cool. It's cool, but this is the elephant in the room, and these are the apps.
There's no hardcore verification of age. There's no, okay, I won't say lack of education, but system-wise, what happened with the new subject that would be, it is called the health education, but it largely failed, and that's a place where children could hear about the resilience. I thought about classes to, offered to my school, and I imagined that I would take my tablet and show them all the worst things, the worst manipulative techniques, and enable them to actually experience it. Let them experience it with me to know how harmful it is for them, and not when they are alone, pulled in a very dangerous experience, when they will feel guilty, ashamed, and silence, and have a sort of emotional hangover. In Poland, we don't really have a vehicle to talk about that, to do that. But there are some milestones that we can use, and these are acts of law and a new regulation and a new regulatory body. If you see something happening with the children online, you can go to this office and make a complaint that will be sent to Brussels. We can have a campaign and act. What we can do are real things. We won't redesign the applications on our own. We may force the platforms in Brussels. So the idea you shared, research shows that it's this way of educating people works, particularly with teenagers, showing them how much they are manipulated, particularly that teenagers have a high need for independent sovereignty and self-awareness. So I support you in, doing that, if only you have energy to do that. Maciek, I would like to ask you about AI and regulations. In March 2023, ladies and gentlemen, Future of Life Institute published an open appeal, and it called for pausing these gigantic AI experiments for 6 months, to stop working on the tools more powerful than a GPT-4, so that society can analyze the risks and benefits. And it was done by regulators and tech companies. It didn't lead to a pause being introduced, but it raised social awareness and it initiated the debate. If technology grows as fast, then are there any supervision mechanisms? Should they not actually be developed equally fast? Are there institutions, is there political climate is able to maintain this pace? A lot of questions. Kasia answered to some of them, speaking about the new act of law and the new institution. Well, in terms of political climate, I think it's best ever. It is best now for us to act. However, it will take a lot of hard work to bring a change. In Dyżurnet, we are dealing with illegal contents. AI is a very serious challenge in this respect. It would be easy, to say the law cannot be, cannot exceed technology. If we did, we would be North Korea, Let me tell you this. At Dyżurnet, it seems to us that we know what needs to be changed. We have it well thought of and written down. Will you share it? No, well, we just need NASA Plus, National Network for this analysis. I'm joking about NASA, okay, as the name, but seriously speaking, what we need are things that will cost a lot of money. But every national state, every member state of the EU should have a body like that, a supervisor to supervise internet, that it does not require serious investments. We have bodies that are responsible for that already. We do not want to build another public institution. Of course, it may differ in the EU, but in Poland, we just want to know whom to report such contents. I said, CSAM, the contents that present sexual exploitation of children are very serious threats. And let's remember, it's not about the video, it is about the victim who is presented there. In Poland or in any other countries, there are people who are responsible for dealing with it. But we need to make it more hierarchical and saying who is whom, so that the work is well coordinated. These are not very complicated cases. They just require a structured approach to have serious things not done by police officers. What are the odds? We're fighting for it. And as usually, it's nothing innovative to say we need support by EU regulator. Right now, it's on the agenda in Brussels. There are two important acts. One is on CSAM. to eliminate these contents, and the other one is directive about the privacy. The legislation process goes very slowly. This is a procedural regulation that is very detailed, to whom you address, when, what you report when. Very many procedural aspects are included then. But in the nearest couple of months, maybe even this year, a CSAM directive will be adopted. So this directive, although in Poland we're still missing a good definition of the CSAM, which is very, very bad, actually. Really unfortunate. The President Wróblewski said recently that we need regulations, particularly on deep fake. So if in an image there are children generated by AI, can a owner of the contents or a person who popularizes this content, can they be accused and sentenced? These questions have well-grounded foundations because in court that matters. Another matter that we consider to be very much needed, and it really does not require much of an investment, it's that we need a system for qualifying CSAM.
So that we know what is what, because this is the content that circulates globally, and it is not always just in Poland. A lot of it is from abroad, and also it will happen a lot. That's what illegal in Poland is going to be legal in a different country, and it is important that the police can actually do the work. So words of respect for my colleagues also from DigiNet, who have prepared it together with Interpol, with other organizations that deal with it and are serious about it. So this is also about talking what works, what doesn't work. This is like the basic ABC of what can be done. Another thing that I believe will happen, and it has been entered into the legislative work of our government, that happened a few weeks ago, and that is also about the database for CSAM. And so these are regulations that were for the police, for the prosecutor's office, and also for the hotlines for all of us, who will allow us to classify the content appropriately and also work with the content, so that the people who are, behind the scenes, they don't have to really watch the same content all over and over again. So this is like going to be the image database, so that we would have an appropriate database as well, and then hash that we would also have appropriate database. So, for example, when there is a number 555, so that we know what it is when it has been entered, and it is possible to count it as well. So this is what we count on, and this is a wonderful initiative of the Ministry of Digitization. So this is a valuable initiative, and we hope that it's going to be introduced very soon. Another thing that I am counting on, and I need to learn more about it because it's really fresh, it's the President Wróblewski Data Protection Office, how to manage the data, because very often when it comes to deep fakes, very often it doesn't go through in the court because, well, they can only remit it, as a matter of fact, and that is because we don't have appropriate legislation. So the case is just dismissed, and or it's just not dealt because it's not a big problem as it is considered, because we don't have it. So it's going to take some time before all of this is introduced. So it turns out that things that are super difficult and impossible to deal with in Poland, they do happen. And, well, 20 years ago, and I'm speaking from my head, that's meaning speaking from nothing, from nowhere, but about 20 years ago, every year in Warsaw, about 300 people died in the streets of Warsaw, and it was 26 persons last year. So, of course, it's still 26 too many, but that is a gigantic difference. So, the majority of the drivers are the same people. It's not that the world has changed so much, but slowly you have to take minute steps. And the worst situation is when somebody can just turn a switch and just fix the world. No, we need to have patience. We need to have appropriate tools. We mustn't give up. And so there is a chance that things are going to improve. But of course, we mustn't rest on laurels. So thank you very much. I can see that a lot has happened. And when it comes to, we hope that we'll move faster than when it comes to social media. So with the AI, it's not going to be as visible. We will not see the traces of that activity, just available at, just at your fingertips, because people dealing with that will have access to this information. It is easy to watch the social media, but when you have a conversation of a child with a chatbot, that history vanishes very quickly. It doesn't vanish, it is hidden. However, we may not be aware of the consequences of the impact. We may not know where it has come from. We hear more and more about it from children. They share their experience. And now we talk about solutions. There is a lot about the education. We speak about the role of the parents. We talked about it a lot yesterday. So everybody agrees that parents are key when it comes to protecting children against effects and impact on new technologies. So when you have classes with children, do you have classes with the parents as well? Do you know how to attract them? Because you know that getting the parents to school and getting them involved in different initiatives, that can be very difficult. So how do you see that role of the parents, how to engage them? Up until now, our project was targeted at students of primary school and high school. But there was one program when we had children between the ages of 4 and 8, together with their parents. And what we were fascinated most by was the reaction of the parents that their children know what we are talking about. We would talk about the name of a game, about social media. Those children understood us really well. They would smile at Roblox, for example. The parents had no idea what we're talking about, and so they came to us, and then they came to us and asked, but what is it? And these were parents who brought their children to those classes. These are active parents who want to educate their children and be active. And despite all of that, they had no idea that the kids know so much about the internet, that they have so much experience, that this is not just black magic. So sometimes those adults understood less than children between 4 and 8. I believe that everything that you have mentioned regarding the apps and the regulations as well, all of this is really beautiful, and I do believe that we should regulate apps themselves. However, in confrontation with reality, the children are much wiser in, finding backdoors than we think. So apart from making the system more reliable, we should also show the parents that they need to get to know the child and the problems that it is facing. And the most important thing is the conversation with the child. So it is impossible to demand from the parent that they would know everything about what we are talking about today. So it would be wonderful if the parents would have this awareness, but the majority do not have that awareness. So if we tell the parents, when you talk to your child, you ask about their favorite game, then we teach them how to find information about the game. They will be able to have a conversation with the dialogue. They will have a much bigger control over what is happening, because the child will come by themselves, that that they are with their friends and playing. That will be much better than parental control, which is not 100% proof, or YouTube Kids, which is far from ideal. There are many flaws in the system, and many parents get the impression that if it's YouTube Kids, then it's threat-free and there's no danger for the child. I believe that the child needs to be in the role of a guide and not a policeman, because the more the parent will try to control the child, the more the child will get out of reach. That's a very simple rule. That's how children work. That's how they act. And also, we need to tell the parents that they need to show alternatives. And the kids want to play in the yard, but sometimes at the age of 5, they may not know that they can go to the playground, that they can go to the yard. So it's not about the parent taking the child by the hand and taking them to extracurricular afternoon classes, yes, but it is about showing that in the world of the internet there are lots of different options. They can do it on their own. And shutting up the child in the room just with the internet or the smartphone, we expose that child to a lot of different threats. Golden words. This would be useful to have a panel about how to involve the parents, because we don't have the possibility to do it today, but it would be worth doing so. So first of all, Sylvia, what solutions do you see? What direction seems most important to you? But also, you are a journalist and you create a lot of different materials, and how to involve and how to convince the public opinion to see that a lot of the problem lies in the architecture of the product, and so that the public opinion also starts demanding changes. So let me start with the first part, because everything that you have mentioned, practically speaking, that everything plus, that will be my program, everything plus everything. I will tell you just now what plus everything means. Regulate, yes. In all of those stories. So we say regulate before it lays eggs. However, before we regulate, and we see that really well, good regulations, good law requires time, but the eggs have been laid very often in places that we don't even expect. Because when we talk about the algorithms that place different content, so not necessarily, for example, when we talk about DSA, that Temu would be available and Shein. So when you have such manipulative algorithms, this is, gamification, etc. However, it really does the brain wash. They also had not expected that there will be so much generative AI. So whether to regulate or not, yes. However, it is not going to be so easy. We see a lot of issues when it comes to the implementation of EU laws on the national level. So sometimes the implementation is not going well. So for example, when DSA was being pushed in Poland, and it was, put into the freezer for many months because of the problems how, this is going to be enforced. So this was like the official censorship. So let us learn from the mistakes from the past regarding the construction of legislation in the past. So I can see the risk that there will be a lot of contempt and there will be a lot of rejection when it comes to age regulation and verification. Everybody knows that it is necessary. However, looking at the attempts, what is happening now in the EU, it's already difficult, but it can really make people turn away from all kinds of attempts to protect people under the age of 13, 15, 17. So this is a great, really challenge to be able to do it well. But really, if we don't do it well, we'll make it repulsive. Also, media education from year 1 in kindergarten. And why not in antenatal classes? This is the last moment when the mother has any influence over the child. Because when it comes to the adults, we don't have the same legislative power, legal power, yes? But prenatal classes are not obligatory either. Well, I do believe that IT starts very quickly, but also that is connected with screen time, yes? But I'm talking about the media education, not just technology and not just internet education. Yeah, this is about cybersecurity. This is about ability how to learn and study in the ever-changing media environment. So this is also about the changes in the media that are taking place socially, technologically, etc. It is really from the age of 3, first kindergarten grade, because we will not force the parents. There are no mechanisms to make adult persons in a democratic country to learn anything, to realize anything. We are not going to put the parents into schools. We are not going to prepare any basis for the program, how they should communicate with their parents regarding digital issues. But if this knowledge comes to them, starting with songs that, mom, dad, when we sit at the table, we don't use the phone. We either eat or we play online. This is the only systemic mechanism how we can reach the parents. Everything else is wonderful. All of the programs, campaigns, conferences, very aware, teachers and educators, all of this is necessary, but it's very local. This is just points.
Wciąż jest traktowane jako element.
Media education is treated as a part of health education that is not an obligatory subject at school. In some programs, in some, grades, there are fragments of what is needed, but I become more and more convinced that it should be in the obligatory foundation. I don't know whether there should be a score for it. Ethics as a school subject is not. So like ethics, for instance, but not like a last class during the day that is easy to be just omitted. Just for a short couple of years, 3 years, 5 years, you're going to see changes coming up. Question was asked, who raises our children? There's a very good book. It was not published in Polish. Susan Ling, who's raising the kids? Who is? Not the apps, not the applications. Companies that stand and have those apps, they raise future clients for the entire lifespan. They want their clients to be not the citizens, just users, clients. Becoming aware of that, the fact that it is systemic, It will not end. It's not a matter of one regulation or another regulation that may finally, come into life or become binding. No, we need to think about next steps so that we move forward. Anything will be better. If we were able to change the president of the United States, that would be even better. But Kasia, you mentioned that you want to have a comment. Yes, I want to be brief because we promised time for questions. There won't be any other reform in the next 3 to 5 years. I can learn from better people. Is there anybody else from the Ministry of Education? They left. Well, when they were supposed to listen to us speaking about media education, they left. There are circles with competences that they have on their website. There's a profile. Everything is there, but from publishing a profile to have teachers teaching things in the class, it's such a long way. But the professors on the didactics, they are absolutely inefficient in allowing such things to be taught. Media competences should be mainstream in every competence. It will be absolutely now, I think, it's the matter of people who are experts. Okay, I will speak slower. We won't teach critical thinking in the class on critical thinking. It should be an element of working with children anywhere. A meta foundation is included in the reform. The best teachers in the world, they come to events like this one, can do that. But how can we help other teachers provide, for instance, these songs or scripts for classes to start with the youngest children, to have it implicit in, the education? Why will obligatory foundations will not do that? Because we already have digital competences included. I've fought for it personally. We wanted to replace digital competences with media educations, and it was absolutely refused. Shall I answer? No. We need to give people also room for questions. Maybe you have also an idea. We need to come up with a better thing than just the fact that children will educate the parents. We cannot put the burden on children. That is a way of getting to parents, but the children are too small. But we need to find a way. It may seem like a utopia, but we need to find a way to reach to the parents, to make them protect their children. Parents as protectors of their children. This generation will have children in a moment, and they will be conscious parents. We're not going to wait that long. Please speak to the microphones. Good afternoon. Very interesting debate. What Mr. Lawyer said, it's a good thing in, birth classes. It should be included. Gynecologists should also say, you have strollers that have a hold for smartphone already, and there's a parent that is not expressing emotions and not maintaining eye contact with the child because they're looking at the smartphone. We want young people to actually be with peers like volunteers. So we need projects with young people to teach their younger peers. Awareness raising. People should know that algorithms abuse them. Algorithms create a bubble of information around individuals. This is manipulation. Young people need to understand it. We have the best programmers in the world, and that's the Digital Act. Could we not make the alternative avatar for a PESEL number, which is national ID number that is used to verify the age in online. What it is needed is cooperation, and we are up to the challenge.
Ktoś z Państwa jest pytanie, chyba tak, albo...
Ja nie mam pytania, ponieważ ja reprezentuję Instytut Badań.
I represent the Institute for Educational Research. If you're saying that we're not doing anything, well, we have health education, and despite various sorts of unfavorable winds, we managed to implement digital education quite widely. The IT foundations for teaching is now being consulted. We observe situation of Polish children in the educational system, and we have practitioners in our teams. So we're not only using academic knowledge base. And my impression is, if we look at the 2026, where the new basis, foundations for particular subjects will enter, I'm sure that Polish school is now doing its homework. Thank you.
Osób trzyma ręce w górze.
Dzień dobry, ja mam na imię.
My name is Agnieszka. I have a question to Olivia. I would like to hear it from young person, such a wise young person. Would you introduce a ban if you had no access to social media? Would you be in the place where you are right now? For these 2 days, I'm hearing a discussion whether to introduce a ban up to the age of 15 or not. I think no, but we need to introduce children into this world well. They're going to spend the rest of their lives in this world anyhow. To guide us well at the beginning, to give them a good start, so that they use it well later on. I have a very controversial relationship with social media. I'm happy that it gave me an opportunity to meet many perspectives and many campaigns. We could get promoted. It's thanks to social media. So ban until the age of 15, like absolute ban might not be a good idea, because when is the time to introduce children to this age if not when they are young? I think 15 years old is too late to show the world of social media to children. If I may, in this debate you have different approaches and you speak with your heart and engagement about the same thing, and you not always share each other's opinions. I think the energy that we need, and we need tons of energy to put order into these things, should be channeled not into banning, that will be energy badly used, but to create good educational system and regulations, to have things in order. Trust young people. Have trust, like Tomasz Bilicki said yesterday. In the end, you say, you limit the use of social media on your own. You're saying, I will always choose my parent. If I have a choice between AI and a supportive parent, I'm always going to choose my parent. And these are areas for work and not a ban. Is there anybody else? We have time for one more question. It's not a question, it's just a conclusion that I have. I represent the justice. I've worked 25 years as a court curator, and I've worked with a broad group of people, and I'm still surprised to see us debating and looking for like 7, 13, or 15 years of threshold. Parents appeal to us, teachers appeal, doctors voice their concerns that this is an addiction. We have 15 points of how harming social media are to children. So my question is, have we been wondering whether beer, wine is more harmful than pure alcohol? 3% or 40%? If we know that's an addiction, then I think we should introduce limits. And 15 years, let me tell you this, the hardest work is with the parents. So parents will have 15 years more to learn how to introduce their child to the world of internet without having social media. That will be an obstacle. Thank you very much. I guess you might have many more comments and questions, but we have run out of time. Let's move the entire discussion to the break time. We're going to have lunch. Speakers are staying with us, so you'll have an opportunity to ask questions.